Welcome to another episode of the FODcast. We talk about all things the future of digital commerce. Very excited this morning to have with me Dean Harris and Anders Henricson. Dean leads the Co-op Media Group, is shaping the UK's convenience retail media strategy with 15 plus years in advertising and retail marketing, focusing on data-driven media that connects the brands and the shoppers. And Anders, CEO of Grassfish, bringing 30 plus years of retail leadership and expertise. He is blending physical and digital customer experiences to steer the company's global growth and in-store innovation. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Tim. Hi, Anders. Thanks, Tim, for having us both on. I'm looking forward to it.
You are very welcome. So I've done my best to give a brief intro, but you guys will do it far better than me. Dean, do you want to give me the slightly better, more coherent version of yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Dean Harris, head of Co-op Media Network. As Tim pointed out, been in the advertising industry or marketing industry for a little over 16 years now. Worked in Adland. Most of my career has been at Co-op. That's a £12 billion portfolio of businesses, so you can have a career under one roof. We've got a food retail business that's the leading convenience retailer. We've got the leading funeral care business, an insurance business, a legal services business, a wholesale business. And we've even got Europe's biggest entertainment arena now as Co-op Live. So it's an exciting business, and more on Co-op Media Network later on. But yeah, lovely to meet you again.
Nice. Thank you for that. And Anders, be good to get a bit more insight into you.
Yeah, super short about me. As you said, Tim, earlier, 30 years within retail, both from a physical point of view and working with e-commerce as well. So I would say that jumping into Grassfish for me is combining my experience with the physical and digital world. So what we actually do is try to create exceptional in-store digital experiences and really bridging the gap between the physical and digital. So for me, joining Grassfish, I would say is really taking my 30 years of expertise and pulling them together to one mission.
And what problem would you say, Anders, that you are trying to solve at the moment at Grassfish?
I would say that the problem we are trying to solve is, as I said, really bridging the physical and digital. Much commerce moved from the physical space to the digital space because of the frictionless, 3 clicks to basket kind of mindset. And how can we bring that back to physical retail and make physical retail super sharp and super frictionless? That's the mission we're trying to cope with, actually.
Perfect. And a big topic to cover off, and we've got plenty to talk about. Dean, what is the Co-op Media Network? And also, what's your remit?
Yeah, so the Co-op Media Network is Co-op's media business, essentially. And when you live in your own bubble of retail media, you assume everyone knows what it is. But if people don't know what retail media, it's essentially an opportunity for advertisers to leverage the media and data assets of a retailer to grow their brand. And a lot of retail media is driven recent years by two challenges that FMCG brands in particular face. One is the media industry is fragmented. So gone are the days in the 90s where you could put an ad against X Factor and reach most of the population. Everyone's consuming video online, streaming services, social media channels went from just being Meta to there being a dozen of them. So if a brand wants to reach a lot of people, it can't do it in one place anymore. They have to do it across lots of places. And the other thing brands want is accuracy, because accuracy equals media efficiency. It removes media waste. But because of the difficulty in connecting, 200,000 people you're targeting on Pinterest, 200,000 people you're targeting on TikTok, is that 400,000 people or 200,000 people duplicated? So what retailers have, especially in grocery, is access to a lot of people shopping a lot of times. And there's only a few of us that have that huge scale. So an ad in a Co-op shop can reach 16 million transactions every single week. An ad in Walmart on Amazon can reach a huge amount of people. And then the data provides the the CFO security, because you can target someone with an ad in a retailer's media estate and you'll know if it drove a sale because we have the sales data. Brands don't have the sales data. So that's retail media. And then Co-op's role within retail media is, as the leading convenience, is really honing in on all those nuances that are different between supermarkets and convenience stores. You know, the pop in and pop out, the missions that might be top up, food to go, meal for tonight, treat, spontaneity. Obviously, our shops are integrated into local communities versus being on the outskirts of town in a car park. So Co-op's role is, you need supermarket media as a brand and you need convenience media, and we unlock those benefits. And as the head of Co-op Media Network, I try and bucket my job into three. So one is make it grow. So more advertisers using us more often for more campaigns across more touch points and channels, like our store, our website, our app, our data that can be leveraged in like social media channels. Make it work. So campaign performance for brands, efficiency, slick operations, the right technology stack and ecosystems, and then make it easy. So simple propositions, simple rate cards, simple end-to-end processes, trying to make it quick and reliable. So those are the three buckets that guide me and my remit.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. But Anders, for me, it'd be interesting to know from your perspective, why is now the moment for connected stores and retail media?
I think it's two ends actually. What Dean is onto, actually, you know, reaching lots of people, and especially if we take the grocery and convenience stores, there is loads of possibilities to create that revenue stream, and I think that's needed for one reason. And the other reason I would say is the connected stores, and this is my real passion. How can we make this shopping journey really connected and utilize the data Dean are talking about to make my decisions in the store easier? Because I think sometimes we talk about quick decisions, you know, moment of instant gratification. But I would say that there is another end to that as well, because if we know where the customer are in their shopping journey, they might want to spend some more time getting some communication to choose the right product, etc. So really using the data to make sorry for the word, but hyper personalized shopping journey. I think it's time for that. And once again, the revenue stream, of course, helps this.
Yeah, and it's super important within retail right now. As we know, it's been a difficult few years and margins are tight. So the commercial opportunities is the increased revenue stream at a high level. What's the biggest risk, Anders, if you want to take that one first?
I think I think Dean is the better answer, but I will answer like this because I think this is growing. Retail media is growing, so the communication towards the end customer is growing. So I would say that the biggest risk here is kind of a communication overload, and it needs to be super sharp what to communicate, when to communicate. I would say that retail media has the same communication principles as all digital communication. You know, the right time, the right person, etc. So, biggest risk: overloading communication, not being relevant, not able to stick out with the message. Is one of the risks I could see.
And that's just too much going on.
It's too much going on. And, you know, someone told me that they keep doing the Netflix series like a repeat, everything repeats 4 times within every scene because people are doing other stuff while they're watching. This is the same thing. We're doing other stuff while we're walking around in the store. And I think we need to be super sharp. So yes, overload is the biggest risk, I would say. One of the biggest risks.
Dean?
Yeah, there was a good analogy used about retail media from a CFO in the industry that came from an airline that said, the retail business is the plane, the bums on seats, they're getting people from A to B, the pricing, the experience, and retail media is the cart that goes down the middle selling the perfume and the aftershave and the sunglasses. It's the high margin aspect, and it enriches the experience to some extent, but you can't risk the core business, because without the bums on the seats, you don't have a retail media business. You need shoppers in the shop buying things, swiping. The data, the eyeballs are the currency of retail media. So the risk is that you take a short-term approach and you chase the revenue, the higher margin, high growth revenue, which is there. I talked about the demand side and why brands want to use retail media. Why retailers want to provide it is, instead of a 2 to 3% growth grocery market at 2 to 3% margins, retail media is known for 15 to 20% growth and 60% plus margins. So if you let that commercial attraction decimate your core business, you're on a spiral down. So it's a careful balancing act between utilizing your assets to unlock income and new profit streams, while still maintaining the core proposition and experience of your business. And we already know retailers are a bit too short-termist with their marketing strategy and their investment strategies. So there is just a danger that retail media is a negative influence across, a 3-year window for a business.
Yeah, and that leads us kind of into the first point that we wanted to talk about, which is servicing brands versus servicing customers. So we've got brand objectives, and they can and will clash potentially with shopper needs. So the question is, who wins, and how do you decide?
So at a campaign level, the retail media can't win unless the shopper has an easier customer journey. So you're putting adverts in front of them to make their choices easier and quicker. There's usually 3 budgets a shopper has when they're in buy mode. One is a time budget. So they've only got a certain amount of time to complete the mission, especially in convenience. They're a lot less time in store. They're not willing to go down every single aisle. They want to just get in and get out. There's a money budget as well, so they'll have that on their mind. But particularly, there's a frustration budget, which is, I can't make my mind up. I'm paralyzed by choice. So an ad in that context can make it easier. You can make an offer more salient in the confectionery aisle. You can draw on a new product to help people be inspired to choose something. So at campaign level, the shopper wins. It's when, to Anders' point, you've got 100 campaigns live at the same time in the same shop, and then you've got the theme park effect. Or it doesn't take much for anyone to go on their phone, on a newspaper website on their phone, and you can't even get through it because of the pop-up videos, the ads that get in the way. The editorial context even flipped from the headline telling you everything to the last paragraph telling you everything, because they want you to scroll all the way to the bottom. So their whole proposition is orientated around income. Our proposition still, holistically, with media and retail, needs to orientate around wanting the shopper to keep coming back and again and again and again. And if you push them away through more clutter, or you decide to sacrifice a little bit of relevance to capture more income, you're in a spiral to nothing. So they're the key trade-offs. There's the short-term single campaign approach, the long-term how many campaigns. For an example, Court Media Network delivered 2,000 retail media campaigns last year. So there's a lot of scale in the activity.
So can you then tell us about a particular example where you have said no, and whether or not it paid off?
It's interesting, because I think you need tension within an organization. I don't think, as head of Court Media Network, it's right for me to make some of the decisions between the holistic retail shopper experience and retail media income. It's very hard for me to do that, because my KPIs are going to be around the income, the revenue, the growth. So the way we do it at Co-op to create the controls, to create the governance is, there's the retail comms team. They own the channels, they own the store, the websites, the app. And essentially, every time I've agreed a campaign with a brand, or I'm planning a campaign with a brand, I say the team, I'm seeking permission to use the estate. And that tension then creates another team's accountable for the experience, another team's accountable for the income, and then there's trade-offs to be had. So that's how we end up with a healthy tension within the store. And there are times where income is rejected, particularly around key trading moments where we might have a big brand launch. We did an Aldi price match campaign last year, and it was a very important campaign for our shoppers, for our business. And we wanted to prioritize media in the shops to talk about that. And that meant there was less space for brands. And that was the trade-off we agreed as a business. So there is instances like that. There's also messaging policies as well. Like, you don't want brands to say something that goes against the values of your organization, and things like that. So there's not just the media placement and the density, there's the brand alignment as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Anders, from your perspective, what kind of guardrails would make sure it's kind of a customer first focus in your view?
Now, I would actually like to build from what Dean said, because Danny said what we decided not to do to minimize the hazard. But I also wanted to have some examples from actually removing commercial messaging to actually make it clearer. So I've seen lots of examples when we look into, everywhere you look in a store, you have to analyze what are the commercial messages I see right now. And then we started to remove things and actually make it even more clear messages, less commercial messages. And we could almost see every time we did that, we saw an increase in revenue with 2, 3, 4% per week. So, always look at the commercial messages so you don't overload it. That would be my take on what Dean said.
So I think it'd be good to talk about data and the reality of where we're at. Data's a huge topic. Everything that underpins anything to do with AI right now is revolving around data. So it is a massive topic. From your perspective, and Dean, if we start with you, what metric genuinely changes Monday's spend from your view?
It depends on your audience. So the retail media has got two words, and depending on which one you emphasize, is relates to what data is important. So if you think retail media, so brands are advertising in co-ops across co-ops estate, our screens, our printed touch points, or our quick commerce websites, and their objective is they want to sell more stuff in the stores that they're advertising in. Then the metrics that they care about are things like rate of sale. How big's the category sales within that shop? How big is their brand? Because if the category has a lot of sales and their brand doesn't have a lot of sales, they've got headroom. And that's an attractive data point to target media towards. If there's stores that don't have a lot of confectionery sales, then a confectionery brand is probably not going to be interested in advertising in those channels. So it depends on the market. So in a conversion market, it's all around, can the ad drive short-term conversion sales, either online or in store? And then obviously, you have choices within the store. Do you choose a screen in the window? Do you choose a floor sticker? Do you choose radio? Do you choose touch points? And the data then is past media campaign performance. What works for an ice cream brand won't work for a beer brand, and what works for a challenger brand won't work for a dominant brand. Then if you flip it to media, and retailers are now working with, we do as well, with media agencies, with non-endemic brands. We work with banks, we work with broadband suppliers, we work with community partners. So we're now also working with brands that we don't sell in our shops. So obviously conversion in those shops isn't important to them, and it's media metrics that are important to them. So things like impressions, attention. So attention is becoming more of a foundation for media planning now, where impressions is more like what you put out there. Attention is more what you consume. So attention is also increasingly important. But when you look at data points versus the reality of it, I think any great CEO can ask for any dashboard he wants in a business. He can get anything at his fingertips, graphs, charts, numbers, anything. What you'll find is all of them walk the floor. They talk to shoppers, they observe, because the why is really important behind the data as well. So being able to give brands context that a bread sale in a supermarket is different than a bread sale in a convenience store because the mindset's different, the triggers are different, the missions are different. That's also important. So there's the what, the how, and the why in terms of data points.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot to consider. And obviously, we've talked about the whole dashboard piece. You're going to track this data and this behavior. But from Anders, from your point of view, where do the dashboards mislead in respect to what the real behavior is from the consumer?
I would say that really, really going where Dean said. If you don't walk the shop, if you don't walk the floor, if you don't know really what you want to achieve, then you can look at any dashboard, but it can be really deceiving. So from one end, it could be that we want to increase sales. But is it then short-term sales? Is it long-term sales? Do we want to build brand top-of-mind awareness? What's the purpose? So I would say that taking the data and having dashboards for just having dashboards and they're not connected to reality, I don't believe in that. So define the purpose of all digital channels. This is the purpose, and then you connect the dashboard to that purpose, so you measure the correct purpose. And of course, if you, from a retail media perspective, your brand and you're purchasing space at a grocery store, you want to increase sales. But if you then look at if you were destroying customer journeys all over the place and people are not coming back to the store, then you don't have the long-term sales. So going back, having dashboards connected to a purpose, measuring the purpose, and really, do that every day. Improve 1% every day. I think that's super important.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we already touched on briefly impressions versus attention. Dean, from your perspective, how do you make the case for attention?
So if you think about impressions and CPMs are like the bedrock of the media industry now, aren't they? But and a lot of things end up being the status quo. And advertising, I mean, some of the things we've mentioned is complicated enough. So we always try and simplify it. One currency, one number, one media plan. We've got channels that go above the line. We've got channels that go up below the line. We try and simplify a complex environment. And CPM seems to be a good thread through everything to denote value for money in the media industry. And it gives you a good idea of reach, and it gives you a good idea on the cost efficiency of that reach. But ultimately, CPM and an impression is a publisher-centric message. It is a supply-side metric. It is what you throw out there, right? Whereas attention is a demand-side metric. It's a consumer-centric metric. It's what was consumed, right? Just because you put an ad on a digital screen doesn't mean someone saw it, but you're paying to put it out there. You're not paying to make someone see it. And those two things are a bit of a tension that never made sense to me. Whereas there's a company called Bloom Research that have been doing loads of attention studies, and their data is now integrated with media agency planning tools. So media agencies have started to plan based on APM, attention seconds per 1,000 people. Cost per attention seconds per 1,000 people is moving to replace CPM in a lot of markets, because that is telling you what you're paying for in relation to how long someone is looking at an ad. And that's what counts. And then you've got two strategies with attention. You can have the high attention per exposure. TV is a good example of that. So a typical 30-second TV ad gets about 13 to 14 seconds of attention because people are looking at the phones and other stuff like that. A digital display ad is getting less than a second. An outdoor ad's getting a little bit more than a second. But if you can make sure that they're seeing that and then they're seeing something else with short spacing, so you can have cumulative attention. So for an example, round a shop, you're probably glancing at the ads as you go around the shop, but when you add up all those seconds, it might be effective. So attention is becoming integral now to the way media is planned and targeted, because everyone's attention is so fragmented now. No one's sat in front of a TV watching ITV for 5 hours in a row without a phone anymore. Those days are gone. So that's why attention is so important.
They certainly are. Where you had to make sure if you wanted to make a cup of tea or coffee, you did it at the ad break, and you had about 2 minutes out,
Yeah.
back in. So there's this thing here that I'm going to go around this 1 second rule. Do you want to, Anders, can you give me a bit more detail about that 1 second rule and why it's important when you're talking about this subject?
I think it's attention, and you don't have more than a second to get a person's attention. So if you walk a store, let's say that you are entering the store, what's the purpose? What's the message you want to see? I want guidance. I want to find my next step into the store. 1 second, and I made up my mind. So I think it's going back to either if you talk about commercials on TV, or if you take the scrolling Dean mentioned before on your ads on your phone. How fast am I scrolling? This is the same behavior you have in the store. How fast am I taking my decision? And it's super fast. Dean said it before that you have some capital, you have time, and you have money when you enter the store. And I would say, at least if I look at myself, when I'm entering a grocery store, I'm either super purpose driven. I just want to get this, and that. And then I want to have super fast shopping journey. So 1 second rule, you don't get more attention. If it takes longer time for you to create the message, then you're gone, then you're out. And so that would be the summary.
And if we can just push a little bit more on the monetization piece, and we talked about revenue being one of the big benefits.
Yeah.
And if we're looking at monetization versus the experience, Dean, where is the line in your view between smart monetization and having too much media in store?
So we're doing a piece of work now on density. So we're trying to figure out if you're a fixture or if you're on an aisle, what is the optimum density for a shopper experience not to be negative? And the good thing that retail media provides a retailer that they didn't have before is extremely sophisticated measurement in outcomes. So the way a retailer used to control its owned media estate was a bit like, it doesn't cost us a lot because we're doing it ourselves. It's our shop. It's our space. We're already putting ads into the shop with price and promo information on. So there was never a lot of stringent measurement on, were we making effective use out of the space in the shop to help the shopper make decisions and to improve their experience. With retailers, we're obviously accountable for the brand's budget and their spend. So we've created these test and control at a touch point level, at a store level, at a time of day level, at a week level. We understand what an ad in a shop is doing to consumer behavior. So we can use all that data to create some density analysis as well. So is it 5 ads in the confectionery fixture, or is it 1 ad, right? Because the more ads you have, the more dilute your attention is going to be, and you're going to see performance of those ads go down. And that's not just a learning for your retail media business because you're not being effective, that make it work responsibility, but it's a learning for your retail business of when's enough is enough. So the other thing we do is inventory management as well. So we have a single view of a store and know exactly what is in a shop. So if a store's already got 5 campaigns live, we won't target that. We've got 2,500 campaigns, a lot of them over-indexing beer sales, a lot of them over-indexing confectionery sales. And because brands' campaigns are usually targeted, not I want it in every shop, you can go, well, there's 700 stores we could put this campaign in. 200 I've already got a lot of media in. Let's move it to the 500 that don't. So we are already making those decisions around density. The other thing to lean on to screens. So we've got 1,000+ screens, all powered by the Grassfish CMS. Screens obviously are a great way to handle multiple campaigns without needing more space. So if I wanted to use printed media and show 6 ads, I can't put them in rotation unless there's some person there swapping them around every 10 seconds. So you've got to use more space. So a screen allows you to rotate, and it can do that without losing effectiveness because of the things we mentioned before. Because there's movement on that screen, it draws the eye. It gets more attention. Because the ads look nicer in a digital screen, there's a premiumization effect as well. So you can use less space to show more ads without losing effectiveness. And then you've got some of the earlier points around hyper personalization. Convenience is really important in morning, noon, and night. The what's bought is different. Raining or sunshine, what's bought is different. A Tuesday versus a Saturday, what's bought is different. Whereas in a supermarket, you're not buying too dissimilar stuff if you do your big weekly shop on a Tuesday or a Sunday, or if it's raining or if it's sunny. So the agility of those messages helps us as well. So the digitization of our store allows to balance that density as our business grows as well. So there's a few things to reassure, I suppose, people that are worried about the experience being dented by retail media. Some of them are innovation, some of them are controls, some of them are analytics.
Okay. And Anders, from your perspective, without going too techie, how do you cap and sequence?
And I think you need to cap yourself by actually using your commercial layout. You have your brand concept and you have your commercial layout, and you know exactly what you want the shopper to do in each moment. So make sure that you are using your hotspots in the correct way. Make sure that you don't have too many different communications meeting the eye. That's one thing. And then, of course, we can cap it technically as well. But I would stick with the commercial layout as the answer to this question. Stick to your concept. Stick to your commercial layout. That's the easiest way to cap yourself from overdoing it.
Perfect. And you've actually segued me really nicely into my next question, Anders. So thank you for that. So we've got these screens, right? And I'm seeing them come up everywhere. And I'm assuming you can't just stick up as many as you want. You've got to be a bit more strategic with it. So Anders, from your perspective, can you explain in kind of layman's terms what commercial layout zones are?
Yeah, I would say trying to explain this in a super easy way, but if you take the commercial layout is a summary how visible your navigation is, how easy it is to find your next step. It actually boils down to how easy is it for me to take my stroller with my baby in the lines and move to the next space. So it's how I can navigate the store, how I have overview over the store, and always know my next action is this and that. And then, of course, if you take the commercial layout, entrance, we talked about it before. I want to navigate. I'm looking for this. This is the overview. Turn right and you will be where you are. And then you take the aisle. This is when you're skiing and or on these transport things. I want to pass quickly. I want to come to the next step. So commercial layout is how you plan the store, how you make the store accessible for the customer, easy to navigate, quick to navigate, frictionless to navigate. So going from A to Z in a super easy way without getting lost in the journey.
Yeah, perfect. Made sense. And Dean, from your perspective, which zones are creating the biggest outsized value for brands? And I appreciate you might want to separate this out into your convenience versus your supermarket, for example.
Yeah. So we break down our toolkit at different phases and mindsets of the shopper, and that's how we think about what's the right media innovation or media touch point to use. So if you think you got away from the store, there might be someone sat on their couch, and that might be our CRM channels, or it might be leveraging some of our first-party data to improve targeting on, streaming services, Meta, so Instagram, Facebook, open web. When someone's on the couch, you've then got out and about, and you might have some proximity digital out of home that the industry partners with now. So proximity out of home and retailer partnerships are growing because there's sometimes an expectation that the brand wants to know if there was a conversion near where that proximity digital out of home was shown. Then you've got the entrance. And the entrance for convenience is really important. There's two reasons for it. One is our stores are in public places. So if we have a screen in our window like we do with the 1,000 entrance screens, you're not just showing adverts to people coming into the store, you're showing adverts to everyone who's walking past the store as well. So you're getting a huge amount of reach and attention from those screens. Versus, say, a screen at the entrance of a supermarket that's pointing at the car park. So the only people looking at that screen are shoppers. We're getting passers-by. So, and it's also the moment when someone enters what we call a transition state. So they're going from not buying mode to buying mode. And in that moment, we've all done it. If you go into a shop, your headphones might pop out, or you might put your phone down and look up to get your bearings. And that 3-4 seconds of transition time is when you see the entrance screen. And when you're getting a brand prompt there, whether it's crisps and you're coming in for a snack, that's going to have a huge amount of impact. And then as you move through the store, you've got end of aisle, in aisle, at fixture, at till, on exit. And we layer out that journey and decide where the right place is for digitization, where it's not. And you've also got, obviously, there's e-commerce touch points as well, that the same principle applies when you're at the homepage, when you're searching for a category, if you're searching the search bar, if you're at till, after you've paid, confirmation. The same principles apply. Is what's the mindset? What's the objective? Are they in browse mode? Are they in a passive mode? And then you can apply the theory around what touch point and what format is best at that appropriate point for the consumer.
I would really like to build on that behavior thing, because me and you had a long discussion about that sometime, Dean, about this behavioral thing. And, much of the shopping online is based on behavior. So if you kind of enter the homepage of this, you enter the homepage and you have this behavior, you're most likely to be looking for this. So then if you go to that department page online and you do like that, then you're most likely to are looking for that. So I think it's the same principle when you talk about communication in store. You need to know the purpose of the person, and you really need to try to, grasp that moment of moving him in the right direction and affecting his decisions. And you were mentioning the 3-4 seconds when you enter a store, Dean. It's really rare that you have that amount of time. So the enter screen is super important.
Yeah.
It's really relevant. Then you move away, and then you start to this 1 second behavior even more. So what we are talking about is different mindsets of the consumer and different zones of the stores, different behaviors, different communication.
And there's I know you work with other industries like car showrooms and things like that. If you think about that environment, there's loads more dwell time. There's more interactivity, and we briefly discussed other industries that are flipping from transactional environments to experience environments. For instance, telecoms. Now, if you go to London and visit an O2 store, it isn't to sell; it's to build the brand, experience. So when we talk about the phases of the customer journey, that's very specific to grocery. You have to reflect on what your environment is trying to achieve and what the consumers want out of that environment. In a grocery store, they want to be in and out quickly, and they don't want to be frustrated, and they don't want to spend a lot of money. So we have to tailor the design of the store around that. In a showroom for a car, they want to learn, they want to be educated. They've ring fenced a part of their day to do that. And the same in the beanbag filled telecoms massive flagship stores in London. They're more open to richer, longer format video and more interactivity. So that there is an industry dynamic to play on as well, Tim.
Yeah,
Agree.
that
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. We're talking a lot about where and how to add more media into that experience, right? So a question for me that I think would be interesting to know the answer from both of you, and Dean, you can start. If you were going to demedia one zone, where would it be?
I think at fixture, when a consumer is making a choice, if there's too much saliency there, you create paralysis of choice. Say there's 20 products to choose from at a fixture, and you've got 2 ads that are making products salient. You immediately have changed from 20 products to 2. The moment you have 20 ads against 20 products, you're back to square one and you're not making the purchase decision easier. So what you really want to do is try and prime the decisions till they get to that point, and then the ad at the fixtures should be reinforcing that. So I think the fixture is probably one of the most careful areas. You need to think about things like density and too much choice, because that's the moment where the frustration can go up and the time needs to go down. They want ease, they want inspiration, they want frictionless choices. So that's the one to be most conscious of. There isn't a magic number yet, and I think retailers might go too far based on the high margin attraction of retail media to then go back the other way. But that's one that you could, if you were to look at where do I not want to put more media, it could be at the moment a choice happens.
Anders?
I'm really boring here because I really agree with Dean. The closer you get to choosing the product, the more careful you have to get with the communication. So the communication is to guide you towards the product, the product of choice. And when you're closing in, don't distract the customer. Make the customer take the choice and be happy with that. So agreeing with Dean, the closer you get to the choice, the more restrictions.
There's not just demedia, Tim. I think that was the word, demedia. There's also a thing around messaging density. So what you don't want is an ad at fixture that's got win X prize, there's a promotion, this is a new product, scan the QR code, there's a picture of the prize, a picture of the product, there's a background, there's a foreground image, the font size is small, there's headlines and sub-headlines. So it's not just de-media, but it's like, I don't know what it'd be, de-message as well. That you've got to be really empathetic with the amount of attention people get as well. Because if you've got 3 messages that can all be consumed in 0.3 of a second, that might be okay. If you've got 3 messages that take 5 seconds to each consume to understand, then you've got a bit of a problem, because a shop is not a storytelling environment. A shop is a salience advertising environment. Your TV for 30 seconds is a storytelling environment. It's one of the reasons our ads on our screens aren't usually a start and finish 10-second ad. It might be a 10-second ad that has subtle movement, because no one's going to stop and watch the full ad. They're going to see from seconds 2 to 4 or seconds from 7 to 8, and you need to know that at any part of that 10 seconds, if they only get 1 second of it, they still have the same takeout. So there's a de-message aspect as well, Tim. Sorry, Anders. You sparked a thought.
No worries. I really like the conversation, but it's also one more thing about the closer you get to the choice and the product, the more sharp you need to be to have the right communication. There is no room for error, because if you are in, let's say that you are choosing from soft drinks, and suddenly there is a message about milk, it's super unrelevant, and you move. So the closer you get to the product, the more relevant you need to be as well. So then it's getting super tricky.
And if we can then move on to the whole offline versus online piece, again, it's quite a big topic. But Anders, from your perspective, where should connected screens not compete with mobile and app?
I think that the mobile and the connected screens have two different purposes. I would say that you are more static with your mobile in that sense that you might have your shopping list and this is what I'm getting things in the phone. And the connected screens are really more about completing the customer journey. So bridging the gap in your customer journey, I think that's mainly for the digital screens and supporting the planning of my purchases is more from the mobile.
Okay, then Dean, your thoughts on this, the whole offline versus online?
I think offline, you're always going to be in a one-to-many situation. Online gives you one-to-one mechanics. You know, there's one phone, one set of eyes, one laptop, one set of eyes. Whenever you're in a shared environment, for instance, screens in a grocery context, you're in a one-to-many. Now, there's a lot of targeting and data that can really hone in on making that as targeted as you can be. But ultimately, you are going to be showing an ad to a lot of people, and it's where contextual targeting comes into play more and cohort-led targeting comes into play more. And you might have, I want to show an ad to a certain demographic of people with a certain attitude that are interested in certain categories, and you put the ad on a screen, you are going to get some media waste because you are targeting groups of people, not individuals. Online is still going to have that one-to-many. But I think if you were looking at a medium that balances the benefits of reach with the benefits of targeting, I think in a physical environment, screens strike that good balance. But I think one of the reasons why digital media is now outpowers traditional formats in budgets globally is that one-to-one capability that a phone has.
Well, guys, we've almost approached an hour, and there's still loads we could talk about. But actually, that's been really interesting for me, and I've got a much better understanding as to just how much goes into these 2 seconds where my eye gets caught and I end up buying a can of Red Bull that I didn't really want. That's kind of how it plays out for me. But it would be really good to just get some closing thoughts from you guys, and also maybe a couple of key takeaways for both retailers and brands on this whole subject of retail media. Dean, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So if you think about takeaways for brands, there's probably two things. One is your brand strategy impacts your retail media strategy. So, for instance, if you're a brand like Coca-Cola that has huge amount of brand equity, huge amount of familiarity, when you get into a buy environment, you're not going to need as much attention to be recognizable. Your brand assets are already distinctive, so you can leverage your brand equity to be really efficient in that purchase environments, online, offline. Whereas if you're a challenger brand that doesn't have that familiarity, you're going to have a different strategy in retail media. You're going to have more attention because when someone sees your logo, when someone sees your brand colors, they won't immediately think about the category you're in. They won't immediately know your personality of your brand. So one is for a brand is don't just treat your retail media approach independently. It needs to be integrated into the wider piece. And the other is start thinking across retail media networks. Is it more around just conversion and we'll use them for that? Or is it about a genuine media channel? Now, well, not every retail media network will be able to do both. Obviously, at Co-op, because of where we are and our frequency, our coverage, and our proven attention, we think we're in both the retail and the media entity, but brand ultimately makes those decisions. From a retailer, I'd say every single retailer is trying to find a way to grow retail media and create a sustainable business. I think one of the things that we made earlier decision was you need a position in the market. You need to be different. You need to prove that that difference matters to people, to buyers, to advertisers, and you need to then cater your products for that proposition. And there's a lot of retailers that are just following what are all the big players doing and saying what all the big players are. And eventually, a right to play doesn't equal into a right to win. So be proposition and positioning focused, and let that guide where you place your pounds and pence.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dean. Anders, to round us off.
Have a strategy. You have your concept, you have your commercial approach, then please do the same thing when you talk about digital advertising or digital communication. There is a strategy behind. There is something you want to solve with the communication. So really define what is the purpose of this? What is the question? What is the thing that I want to solve for the customer? Build it, test it, try it, and remake it until it's perfect. And then you start learning, take steps. Don't overdo it from start. Start with baby steps. Get your competence, get your confidence, and then move forward and add digital channels and digital communication. But I would really would urge you to measure. You cannot measure enough. It's something that don't has a purpose. Coming back to what we talked about the dashboards before, measure the correct things and learn.
Perfect. Guys, thank you very much. It's been hugely insightful. I know the audience that we have will be in agreement with me, and appreciate your time, guys. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Anders.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Tim. Take care.